As an educator, you know that reading is crucial for every student as it lays the foundation for success in school and beyond. Scholastic Literacy Pro makes reading joyful and powerful for every student, anytime, anywhere. Based on their reading level, interests, and age, each student's unique and personalized bookshelf is filled with ebooks and recommendations for books from their library that students will love to read, turning the most reluctant ones into avid readers with point-of-use teacher resources and embedded student scaffolds. Hitting reading goals is a breeze. While book quizzes and real-time feedback bring deeper comprehension, the reading experience is so enjoyable that students never want to stop. Make timely decisions using reports, insights, and alerts from the teacher and administrator dashboards. And families can create a joyful reading culture at home with Family Zone resources. Scholastic Literacy Pro, making reading joyful and powerful for every student and every educator.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Alice Lee, and this is a session on nurturing emotional intelligence, fostering social emotional learning, resilience, and well-being in schools. Thank you for joining me today. So I am an educator, administrator, and avid children's literature reader. I serve as the Director of Teaching and Learning for a school district in Huntington Beach, California. I previously was a principal in El Segundo, California for many years. And I am author of 2 books, A Family Like Ours and In This Season. And it's my pleasure and honor to go through this session on the importance of social emotional well-being with you all. So in talking about mental health is a topic that is of high interest and high focus in the United States, and particularly around schools, teachers, and students. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention define mental health as our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. And so in sharing mental health statistics as it stands for our youth in the United States, the National Alliance on Mental Illness found that 1 in 6 youth ages 6 to 17 experience some kind of mental health disorder every single year, and 50% of all lifetime mental illness start at the age of 14, and 75% by the age of 24. This means adults who suffer with the mental illness have exhibited symptoms between the ages of 14 and 24. And COVID-19, as you know, did not help these dire statistics. It is now 1 in 5 people who reported that the pandemic had significant impact on mental health, and 1 in 10 people under the age of 18 experienced or experiences a mental health condition after a COVID-19 diagnosis. So why does this all matter? And what do we do? I'm sure that it's not just the United States youth that experienced a decline in mental health over the past several years, but that children, youth, teachers, adults across the globe experience a decline or stress during the COVID-19 after the pandemic and in our mental health. But there is hope. There's hope, and there are ways that we can address this in our schools, and it's with social emotional learning. So why social emotional learning? Mental health and social emotional learning are connected. They're not the same. However, social emotional learning, or SEL, promotes positive mental health by promoting healthy decision-making, fostering good relationships, health and well-being, and impact attention, learning, and performance of students in school. Social emotional learning cultivates the protective and preventative factors to buffer against mental health risks. As you can see, this is something that is important, that is in our schools, and something that we can actively take actions to help our students and even us as adults and teachers in schools to address and become better at, so that we can become healthy mind and spirit. And so what are emotions exactly? Emotion is an immediate response when something happens in your environment. or that's something that happens in your mind that makes changes in your thinking, something that you like or you dislike, something in your body, like your breathing might go faster, your heart rate might increase, there might be a change in your hormones, something that your expressions might change, you might frown or you might smile, your voice might go up or down or go really high, and that's something that might happen in your behavior. So there's a fight, a flight, you freeze, you either approach something or you avoid something. And if you think about emotions, it's something that happens, your emotions are impacted throughout the day, multiple times a day. You could be walking, going to work, and then all of a sudden your coffee spills on you. My goodness, you were in a good mood, but now your coffee spilled, now you're irritated. And our emotions switch right at that moment. And then we see someone across the street that we know and we love and we haven't seen in a long time. That piques our emotions again. We're happy, we change. And so again, in our lives and in our students' lives, the emotions fluctuate throughout the day and emotions matter. And so there was some research that was done around how people want to feel. How do we want to feel generally? And what the research found was that people want to feel happy, excited, energized, inspired, safe. I mean, there's all these words that are on there. And so can you think about some of these words? How do you want to feel? When you're at work, do some of these words resonate with you? I know for me, one of the words that really stick out to me is I want to feel purposeful. I want to know that when I do go to work at my district and we're working with professional development around teaching, I want to know that the things that I do, the things that I have meetings around are purposeful. And I want to feel excited when I go to work. It's not something that I dread, but I want to feel pumped, like I'm happy to do this work today. And if we think about our students, how do we encourage our students and even our colleagues, our teachers? How do we help them all feel this way when we are together at school and when they are in your classrooms? So back in 2018, my district sent a team of educational leaders, principals, directors, and teachers to the Yale University to receive training on the ruler approach at the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence. This system was implemented at my district and school site to promote emotional literacy and improve overall social emotional wellness in my school. That included not just the leaders, but our teachers, our students, our parents, and our entire school community. So the ruler approach is an evidence-based system to social emotional learning, and the ruler approach supports the entire school communities in understanding the value of emotions, building the skills of emotional intelligence, and creating and maintaining positive school climates. So those are the really key things around this approach, that we're understanding that emotions really matter. You're building the skills of how do we become more emotionally intelligent, and then how do we create and maintain positive school climates. Again, coming back from COVID, I know that a lot of our schools, our environments, parents, there's a lot of anxiety. A lot of our systems were impacted. So how do we work together, especially as a school leadership team, as teachers, to really elevate and maintain social emotional wellness in our classrooms? So Dr. Mark Brackett, he's the director for the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence, says that emotions matter, and they matter a great deal in school. Everyone needs emotional intelligence and opportunities to be brave and kind. So there are 5 approaches, or there are 5 components for the ruler method. It's recognizing your emotions in yourself and others. It's understanding the causes and consequences of emotions. It's being able to label your emotions when you're feeling a certain way. Instead of saying, I feel bad, is it really that you're feeling bad? Like, what is the emotion that you're feeling? So labeling them accurately. And then it's then expressing your emotions appropriately. And the last R is regulating your emotions effectively. And all of this is so that we can be our best selves and we can have those really great emotions about, I wanted to feel, being excited, or you want to feel purposeful. It's so that we can maintain our best selves at all times. And so we're going to walk through each one of these components together. So the first R is recognize. How am I feeling? And so this is a question that I would ask students and teachers every single day. What are the kind of thoughts that are going through my head? What's happening in my body? And how may the other person around me or next to me feeling? So how am I feeling? I'm thinking about, is it low energy? Do I have high energy? Is it a bad feeling or is it a good feeling? It's really kind of being aware of how you're feeling at any given moment, and particularly when you're not in a good moment. So right now, audience, if you can think, how am I feeling right now? For me, if I'm honest right now, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm excited to share this information with you because I'm hopeful that you can take this back to your classrooms and it will be effective or hopefully helpful with you and your students. So the next slide, it says there's something called the mood meter that is used in the ruler approach, and it has a grid. So as you can see, there's red, yellow, blue, and green. The long line, it's, the up or down. It's either, am I feeling a high energy or I'm feeling low energy? As you can tell, I'm pretty high energy right now giving this presentation. And it's just how much physical and mental energy is going through your body and your mind. And then when you look at the horizontal line, the flat line, it's, am I feeling unpleasant or am I feeling pleasant? So those are kind of like, if you're low energy and you're not feeling that great, it's kind of that unpleasant, low energy quadrant. And then if you're in the pleasant but you're high energy, let's say like that's in the yellow quadrant. So you have these 4 spheres or 4 quadrants of how emotions run, and this is something that we call the mood meter in the ruler method, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And so the next one is then understand. Understand, why do I feel this way? Why is my emotion high? Why is my emotion or my energy high? And why is my feelings or my pleasantness very high? And so it's kind of going through some of these thoughts. Why do I feel this way? What might have caused this emotion? What are people or events that preceded this emotion? Did something happen between friends? And what tends to happen when this emotion is experienced by myself or others? So for example, let's go back to that example of, let's say we're walking and then I spilled coffee on myself. My emotions, it definitely go from pleasant to very unpleasant. And in that moment, maybe my energy would go from maybe a more neutral emotion or a neutral energy to a high energy. So not only do I not feel that great, my energy is high, right? And so it's kind of taking a check of my emotions, again, recognizing that I feel a certain way and why am I feeling that way? This is really good also when we're having conversations with students. And they're frustrated, something happened, and we're asking them, why do you feel this way? Why are you mad or why are you sad? And a lot of times kids say, I don't know. Or at least kids that I dealt with, sometimes they would say, I don't know. And some would know, but then you can ask them questions. Did something happen before you came into my office? Did something happen before you yelled at your friend? And really kind of help them dig through, why is it that they are feeling this way? And once after we feel that way, or once we explore the understanding of why they're feeling a certain way, then it's to label the emotion specifically. What word describes how I am feeling? So on the next slide, so this is the mood meter again with more words. And so as I was sharing, so let's go back to the example of the coffee. Unpleasant feeling, pretty high energy. So I would probably say maybe the emotion could be embarrassed. I feel embarrassed. There's coffee on me. I'm trying to go to work, right? And so this mood meter it's so important for kids to have language and words to describe their emotions. If you can take a look at this chart right now, are there some words where you would like to feel? Maybe not how you're feeling right now, but maybe how you would want to feel. For me, I think generally I like to feel cheerful. So if you look at cheerful, it's in that yellow quadrant where it's pleasant feelings and a little bit of a higher energy. And other times, but when I'm at home, I just want to feel comfortable. I want to feel pleasant, but it's a lower energy. You're not exerting a lot of mental or physical stress. When you're at work, taking a look at these words, how do you want to feel? And where do you feel most yourself? What one of these words describe how you might feel about, like when you're thinking about your authentic self, your true self, where do you want to feel? And it's really important to ask students these questions too. especially if a student is not in their preferred state. So maybe a student wants to feel valued, but at the moment they're feeling offended. Something happened, so their energy is low. They're not feeling that great. We should have these conversations with students. If you're feeling in the blue, how do we get you to the green, which is the valued piece, or where the valued word is at? How do we move them? What are some strategies that we as teachers can provide our students so that they can shift their feelings? And another time, sometimes kids don't want to move or feeling. Sometimes you want to stay mad for whatever reason, or sometimes you want to stay in the blue. You want to kind of sit in whatever emotion that you're feeling, and that's okay too. One of the questions that I ask students a lot is, do you want to stay in this emotion, or do you want to shift? Do you want to stay or move? And if the students say, I don't like feeling like this, I want to move, then we can have conversations and strategies. And then there's E. E is for express. So when you're feeling a certain mood, you're feeling a certain emotion, how can we express our emotions appropriately and not just rage out or explode? What clues can I find in a given situation to help me know the most helpful way to express my emotion? Sometimes students, again, when they're angry or when they're frustrated, they'll lash out. They'll act in a very rash way, which then leads them into the principal's office. And we had to have conversations of why they're there. So we walk through this. I recognize you're angry. Let's understand why you felt this way. Oh, you're angry. You're frustrated. You're embarrassed. But when we're talking about expressing our emotions, we can ask them, okay, but was that the best way to show someone that you were angry or that you were frustrated? Because you should not have hit your friend, or you should not have taken the ball from your friend. What are some things that you can do instead so that you don't have to come to my office? And so really kind of acknowledging that the student felt that way, whether good or bad, and also helping them cope with their feelings. And then how do we shift? How do we help them move so that they're not in that feeling for too long, especially if it's more negative and they don't want to be in that way? And so R is regulating. So this is the entire piece. Does this emotion help me reach my goals right now? Meaning, if I was in a fight with my friend, if me staying mad, is that going to help me stay friends with my friend that I just got into a fight with? Or what do if I want to change that, I have to shift, right? Do I want to stay in this emotion again, or do I want to shift to another one? It's that notion of, do I want to stay or do I want to move? So we're trying to teach our students and ourselves regulating. If I want to take this even to teachers, I know, parents can sometimes be challenging. They don't like something that happened. And they may give you a phone call or an email saying, why is my child's grade that way? And you as a teacher, you're saying, I did everything that I could for this child. Here's what I want to do. So even as adults, how do we regulate when we're upset? Right? There's many different strategies that you can do, and we're going to go over that in just a bit. So when we speak of regulating emotions, does this emotion help me reach my goals right now? Or do I want to stay with this emotion or shift to a different one? And if I was frustrated or anxious, it is a high energy. And again, it's a high energy, unpleasant feeling that I want to feel, or move to feel more relaxed. If I want to move to feeling more relaxed and comfortable, how do I do that? What would I do as an adult to go into that feeling? So the next slide. And by understanding these 5 components, the recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, regulating, we can then now look at some strategies and tools to help us to be more mindful and to regulate our emotions so that we can be the best versions of ourselves, especially in challenging and difficult situations. So we're focusing on our energy and pleasantness sometimes, and not the specific emotion. And so here are some tools for social emotional wellness. And I'm going to go over 4 tools with you. One is called the charter. The second one is the mood meter that you've already seen. The third one are regulation strategies. And then the last one is using literature in your classrooms. to promote a discussion and to help students kind of prepare and give them some strategies and tools in their head for when things happen. So I'm going to go back to the slide of how everyone wants to feel. So when we're thinking about the charter is something that we call like it's like a pledge or something that you decide together with your students or with your staff. So think about these terms about how everyone wants to feel. How do we want to feel when we're at work, when we're in our classroom, when we're in our family community, wherever that is? Really help our students to think, or yourselves to think, how do you want to feel? And then you create something called the charter. And so you ask the question to your students or to your teachers, as a classroom or school community, how do you want to feel when we are in this space together? And what can we do to help ourselves and each other to experience these feelings consistently and to create a positive working environment? So when I was a principal, I had my teachers fill this out on like a Google form. And so they asked, and then we created like a word bubble of what most teachers said of how they wanted to feel. In the classroom, what teachers did was they passed out Post-its to their students. So how do we want to feel? So the teacher then took inventory of how students wanted to feel. Each individual student wanted to feel in that classroom. They put it on a Post-it, and then they almost made like a chart. And if there were words that repeated, that was kind of a more themed word. And then you want to kind of pare it down so you're not feeling 50 different things, because it's a charter. It's a promise that you're making with each other. So you want to maybe narrow it down to about 5 feelings of how people want to feel in your classroom, and then come up with some strategies of how we're going to help each other and ourselves to experience these feelings consistently so that we feel positive when we are in these spaces. So I wanted to give you an example of what my former school's charter looked like. And so our teacher said, we want to feel inspired, joyful, optimistic, valued, balanced, supported, and effective. So as teachers in my building, they wanted to make sure that every day that they came, or at least as much as possible, they wanted to feel inspired, have joy, that they're valued, that they're supportive, and that the things that they do matter, that they are effective. And then as a staff, we decided that in order to have these feelings consistently, all our teachers, so anytime you come into a meeting, they're going to choose their attitude, respect one another, leave negativity at the door, that they would be present, that in the meeting or any situation or event, we're going to stay on topic or on task. Everyone's participating, we're listening, we're going to disagree respectfully if we have to disagree, and then keep side conversations to a minimum. Teachers, if you're in meetings, you might know what that means. We have a story to tell while a presenter is talking, so we're going to keep that at a minimum. That our teachers also agree that they will have professionalism, that they're going to arrive on time, start on time, and as presenters, we would start on time with clear goals, an agenda, and snacks. So snacks was a big deal. Food mattered at my school, and so making sure that we had some goodies to give teachers after a long day of work was important. And then that we were going to have fun and to enjoy the opportunity to respond, reflect, and share. So this was a charter that we created as a school staff. And for me as the principal, it was my responsibility that we try to uphold all of these feelings and these actions as much as possible. So when we're thinking about strategies of how we want our charter to be effective, we can think about what are some things that we can do to help us out of the red. So if you're feeling high energy, low pleasantness, what are some things that you can move out of the red? So, or out of the blue, or into the yellow, or into the green. Those are typically the areas where people mostly want to stay in. It's the yellow and the green, where you're feeling pretty good, but your energy can either be high or low, and that's okay. So when we're thinking about charters in your classroom, what are some of these things that will not be disruptive, but things that will help your classroom environment? So having fun, having moments where the kids can dance or they can say something nice to one another. Maybe you have a circle time. What are some of those things that would work for you and your students? So I wanted to also share with you some examples of classroom charters. So if you can see the picture on the left, our class charter. So they actually did put all of those words together. And then the teacher then created a charter, as you can see on the right. So they took all the words like the kids wanted to feel. So like welcome, confident, be honest with each other, feel respected, or, encouraged. Then they wrote, in room 200, we want to feel happy, loved, brave, serene, safe, smart, inspired, and joyful. And that we can feel these ways by, and so these are the ways that we want to ensure it's those yellow and green words that are in that quadrants, filling filling other people's buckets. So we read this book called How Foolish Your Buckets, a book on kindness. And when you say you fill each other's buckets, you're saying something nice to them. You're doing something nice for somebody else. So you're filling somebody else's bucket. Some of the other strategies included giving compliments, working hard, listening to our teacher and others, showing kindness, doing our best. So this is the promise that class is going to keep. And when you see a student not doing something like this, so they're maybe saying a mean word or not listening to the teacher, because everyone agreed with these promises, the students can kind of look at each other and say like, hey, this is what our charter said. And so kind of really then directs. And what teachers really found too, because we want to know that this works in classrooms, teachers reported that the students felt heard, they felt seen, they took ownership in this charter. So it's not just a set of rules that the teacher is putting by themselves, but that the students are actively engaged in. They help create it themselves, and that they had control over the feelings and the environment of their classroom. And then the last charter example I wanted to share with you is a family charter. So especially during COVID, this was something that was so important because families were in all different places. And so as a principal, I encouraged my family or our families in my district or in my school to create a charter for themselves as well. And so how do you want to feel in your family? And how will you create these feelings as a family? And so this is an example of actually my family charter. And so we decided that in our family, we wanted to feel calm, connected, grateful, happy, loved, positive, and safe. And here are the different things that we said we would do in order to feel those words. So in order to feel calm and connected and grateful, so we said we're going to read together, we're going to play puzzles, we're going to say thank you and please, we're going to talk things out. In order to feel loved, we're going to give each other hugs and kisses and say nice things and say I love you. And to feel positive, we're going to keep trying and saying I'm sorry. And in order to feel safe, we will tell each other things will be okay. And so those are the charters. So again, charters were a very important piece of the ruler approach to make sure that you've kind of set the ground rules for your classroom or your school. And then mood meters. So teachers created mood meters for their classrooms and so that their students can actively engage with on a daily basis. So if you can see the picture at the top at the top left of your screen with the happy faces. So this was for some of our kindergarten classes where, sometimes they're learning to read at this time. The teacher created a big grid and then she put the faces of the students on magnets. So when students walked into the classroom, they would then put their face where they were feeling. So as you can see, there are a lot of students on the yellow and green, and then there were some students that were in the blue. And then another teacher on their nameplate, she also put the mood meter on there. And so students can use that clip. You see that there's like a little clip there. They can put it to where they were feeling. And it's a quick at a glance where the teacher, when she's walking around as students have entered the classroom, she could see, oh, okay, I need to check in with Amelia. Amelia's feeling kind of sad. I wonder if something happened. Or, little Johnny, he's in the red. I want to pull him aside and ask him, hey, are you okay, buddy? Do you want to stay there? Do you want to move? In the middle photo, as you can see there, a teacher, again, had a big poster on the side of her desk. Her students were on magnets. And then as they walked in, they would then move their face based on where they were feeling today. And then the picture that you could see on the right-hand side, it was about one teacher read a book. and they were talking about how the character in the book was feeling. So there's a way that you can even relate this to characters and literature, that as you're reading something, how are the characters feeling? Are they feeling happy? Are they sad? When do they shift? And how did they shift during the book? We could do this if you want to make this another leap. You can do this even in history when you're doing a history lesson. Sometimes history is messy, and students might have some feelings around that too. And so that's an activity that you can do with your students. So you can do it in a real life setting of how you're feeling at any given time. There's like a marker where kids can check in. There's you can do it with reading when you're looking at characters. How is the character feeling? You can do it in history. And on that history note, there are some times where you have to be in the red, because that is where advocacy happens, right? You have to be mad about something to do something. So there are all these different ways where you can use the mood meter, but really just being aware of how people are feeling. Again, just taking that back to recognizing and labeling your emotions. That is where this becomes, or this is so important. And let's talk about regulation strategies. So, we're talking about not only are we expressing them, we're recognizing them, but if we want to shift, if we want to start regulating our feelings, what are they? How do we do that? So there are two categories. There's the thought strategies, and then there's action strategies. So thought strategies are positive self-talk. So if, let's say, a student got a bad grade, they're feeling very depressed now. They were feeling okay, but now they're feeling depressed. So instead of staying in that depressed state, kind of low, not really good feelings, they could say, you know what? It's okay. You know what? Next time I'm going to study. I'm a smart person. I can do it. I'm going to try my best next time. I'm going to work with the teacher. Positive self-talk. You can do it. I got this. Fighting. Let's go. There's ways that we can then shift out and try to get out of that depressive state. There's positive reframing, things like, it's not a big deal. I'll be okay. Like, for example, let's say, my students would fight all the time over who was going to get the ball at recess. And let's say a friend got it instead of them. And instead of being angry, we can help students to reframe, it's okay, I'll just get there faster next time. Or it's not a big deal. So having kids, or even ourselves as adults, reframe the situation. Another thought strategy, acceptance, just accepting what is happening. Another way is to visualize what is something that can happen maybe next time. We can use humor. I watch a lot of comedy shows and things on social media. Sometimes that makes me laugh. Sometimes that will help you distract. So humor and distraction, I feel like are kind of aligned. Where if I'm in a bad mood, sometimes you'll want to watch something funny, right? To kind of distract you out of that bad mood. And then afterwards, you feel okay. Another thing that, it's more of an action strategy, but aligned with thought, is sometimes, like, if you're feeling really bad, having a good cry makes you feel better. I don't know. It's like a release of all of the feelings that you've been bottled up inside, and you feel better. So then moving into the action strategies. What are some ways that we can regulate our emotions? Getting good health habits. So eating regularly, sleeping, exercising. There's a therapist that I talk to a lot, and she always asks, she says, when she talks to her clients, she will ask them, how's your diet? Are you eating breakfast, lunch, dinner? Are you sleeping at least 7-8 hours a day? And are you exercising? Are you moving your body? So those three things really impact how we feel generally. Hanging out with your family and friends. They're your support group. Doing something fun. Some action strategies is avoiding. Sometimes you want to avoid the situation. You know that if you hang out with or there's a certain group of friends that maybe they're not very helpful for us, maybe avoiding that situation or them for a little bit might help with our emotions. Problem solving. What are some ways that we can solve this problem together? And seek adult help. Asking somebody, hey, can you walk me through the situation? These are some examples of regulation strategies that we can share as adults, and we can also share with our children and our students as well. And I wanted to also talk about gratitude and the power of gratitude as a strategy. I know sometimes when we or our students are not feeling so great, it's kind of hard to get them out of that. But if we can ask them, what are some 3 good things? It's called the 3 good things exercise. Have students or adults list what are 3 good things that you can be thankful for, and have them write it down, put it on a Post-it, say it out loud. These things, research shows, helps reduce stress. It improves physical and mental health. Research found that the impact of everyday, daily gratitude actions, people are happier, they're less depressed or anxious, there's less addiction, you're less stressed, and again, it improves your physical and mental health. I shared earlier that I wrote a book in this season, and one of the entries is on gratitude, and I wanted to read this for you all. And it says that there is hope, there is purpose, there will be a better day, there will be restoration, there will be another moment for gratitude. Rehearse and remember the stories of moments of gratitude, of laughter, of levity. Levity is when things are light. Take a moment to utter a breath of thank you. Through gritted teeth or shouts of joy, thank you, I am grateful. Say it until a thought or memory bubbles back to the surface of something that made your heart warm, happy, proud, and safe. So again, practicing gratitude. Some of my teachers used to have our students write every single day when they got into the classroom in a gratitude journal. Basically, it was just a notebook, and they had their date, and the students had to write down 3 things that they were thankful for every day when they walked into class. And that is kind of setting your mind into, okay, I'm thinking about the things that I love and things that people that I'm thankful for. It kind of puts you in a different frame of mind. So I encourage you, try this. Let's try this together about remembering the things that we're thankful for, even in those moments that we don't feel very thankful for a lot of things because we're in a bad situation or in a challenging situation. Practicing gratitude is also very, very helpful for our social emotional wellness, of resiliency, and our overall emotional health. And lastly, I wanted to talk about literacy and social emotional wellness. So as we read books, we build empathy, we build compassion, we restore humanity through books. And there are some books that I wanted to share with you that you might be able to read with your students and have these conversations with them so that they can practice and see it in a book of how characters and stories they exhibited social emotional wellness and how they express their emotions. So there's something called the grand conversation, and it's where students are reading a book together. And so the teacher would be reading a book, and they're sitting in a big circle. So the grand conversation happens in a circle. Students take turns. They respect all views. They're an active listener. So these are kind of the rules. Everyone gets a chance to speak. You're connecting your thoughts back to the text. You're asking questions. You're responding to one another. And the teacher is really facilitating a discussion. So it's not the teacher asking the questions. The students are really the ones that are kind of reflecting back and participating about a book. And so some questions that teachers can ask in a grand conversation so that they're not leading they're facilitating it, but you're not picking the students are, what do you notice? What are you wondering? What are you thinking? What or who is missing? And what surprised you? Okay, so there are some these are some very broad questions that you can keep in mind if you decide to do a grand conversation in your classroom. So the first book that I wanted to share with you is a book by Alexandra Penfold and Suzanne Kaufman. They wrote a book called Big Feelings. And it's a story where these kids, they're out together, and it labels like how students are, or how the children are feeling because of the situation that's happening in their book or in the story. So there's words like hopeful, tired, scared, nervous, inspired, prepared, hopeless, low, excited, right? So in this picture, you can see, I feel hopeful and I feel tired. So this book is something very good that you can talk about with your students and see, have you ever felt this way? What do you think? What do you notice? Another really important book, or a book that I love, is called The Invisible Boy. It's by Trudy Ludwig, and it's about this boy who, as you can see in the top picture, he's with a lot of friends, but he doesn't really stick out. He's invisible. You can see he's like black and white, doesn't have a lot of color until he meets a friend. And this is one part of the story where it says, maybe, just maybe, Brian's not so invisible after all. And this is a really good story around friendship, about feeling seen, about how we include one another. And you can have a ground conversation around this book too, and students can start noticing, using words of how he might have felt, how the invisible boy might have felt throughout the story, and how he changes because of certain actions of his friends and peers. Another book is called What Does It Mean to Be Kind? And a part of the book says, being kind means smiling at the new student in the class, giving someone a compliment, holding the door for someone else, sticking up for someone who is being bullied. So it's really encouraging a culture of kindness, a culture of inclusivity in your classrooms. It's a great book. And then the last book is Sometimes I Grumble Squinch. And so it's about this girl, and she has a lot of feelings, and she kind of holds it all in, and she calls it grumble squinch. Sometimes she grumble squinches. And so part of the book, this one says, you okay? Mom asked me. I nod because I'm always okay. So this girl is feeling she always has to be okay. But that nod is a lie. I am not okay. And lying about it is making me cry. And then I just can't grumble squinch my feelings down anymore. And then she explodes. But this picture book is really, I think it's important for students to feel, because especially when we're thinking about the ruler approach, what happened? What happened before she exploded? She was holding down her emotions, and the way that she called it is she can't grumble squinch anymore. So this would be a really great book to talk with your students. And really, again, how is she showing and expressing her emotions? How does she regulate her emotions? And what can we do as a class when we're feeling frustrated? How can we regulate our emotions without exploding? And lastly, this notion of there's this high tech versus high touch. Right now, there's a lot of movement around AI, around technology, and this world. There's fast evolution, and with the integration of faster technology, artificial intelligence, and it's impacting every sphere of our lives. But what researchers are finding is that you cannot take away the human interaction out of everyday life. It's not one or the other. We actually need both. And around social emotional wellness, I mean, we need to be okay. And the human connection is so, so important. Technology can never replace what we feel as humans. They can't take away how we interact with one another. And so when we're thinking about depression and anxiety, our mental health is integral to the overall well-being of ourselves and efficacy of humans as educators, as a community. And so I want to leave you all with this last quote. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And that's by Aristotle. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. I hope this was helpful in starting conversations with your students and your community around understanding that emotions matter, how we take care of ourselves and each other matter, and that affects not only how we feel, but also how we learn and how we just thrive as humans. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure being with you today.